we've got a lot to talk about. Baseball America dropped their top 30 prospects for the Yankee organization, the international free agent debacle, which we'll discuss and I'll give my thoughts on, and questions from you guys, the viewers that we asked on Twitter. All of that and more right here on Fireside Yankees. Like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell. Every Friday, you'll get prospect content with this overlay, with these graphics. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming out. I'm using Photoshop for the first time. I just started learning it, so if you guys can give me feedback on the graphics, both the thumbnail, the overlay, some of the graphics you'll see on screen, I'd really appreciate it. Anything I can do to make this better, I'd really love to hear what you guys have to say. And without further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video. And let's start by talking about Baseball America dropping their top 30 list, their top 30 Yankee prospects. And if you look at the top 30, the top end of this list looks pretty much in line with what you would expect. George Lombard Jr. remains the Yankees' #1 prospect. Elmer Rodriguez, Dax Kilby, Carlos LaGrange, Ben Hess round out the top 5. Spencer Jones actually opens 2026 in the same spot he was in 2025 as the Yankees' #6 prospect. Bryce Cunningham, Dylan Lewis, Thatcher Hurd, and Chase Hampton round out the top 10. There are some fun names on here, some notable players who are not on here. We'll talk about the arrows up and arrows down, but some of the things I really like about this list are the aggressive rankings of some later round picks in the draft. If you look at the top 15, Mac Hewer is on this list. Mac Hewer was their 8th round pick. He is ahead of Caden Kent, Pico Cone, who are higher round picks. Jack Siebert is on here, and he was a deep pull in that 2025 draft class. It'll be really interesting to see how some of these arms perform. You've got Kyle Carr taking a big jump. And, as we look at this list and we look at some of the guys who are ranked highly, ranked not as highly, I'm a little bit shocked by Alan Facundo's ranking. I thought he looked really good this year, and his velocity was great. I'm kind of shocked he's only number 28 on that list. I'm also a little bit surprised that Cade Smith got such a big bump from what was, I think, around 22 opening the year in 25 to number 11. Clearly, they really liked what they saw in the Arizona Fall League. And I think perhaps my favorite ranking is in that top 3. It's Dax. It's George. It's Elmer. I mean, those guys are, in my opinion, the undisputed 3 best prospects in the Yankee organization. And it's interesting because I would consider Carlos LaGrange for that top pitching prospect spot, and I don't think it'd be crazy to put him there. I'd actually expand it and say, yes, the top 4 is what it should be. I would not have anybody else in the top 4. I do believe that when you look at the Yankees' #1 prospect conversation, that this season it'll be more up for grabs than it was last year. Once Jason Dominguez graduated, it would have taken a lot for another guy to become the #1 prospect in the Yankees system. This year, I think there are, again, 4 guys who are going to fight for that title throughout the season. Elmer Rodriguez is someone who I think has a really good shot at winning that out. Dax Kilby is someone who also has a very strong case. And if you look at Baseball Prospectus, they ranked him #1. And, I spoke to the writer for that list, and, his reasoning, his process behind it. This is a guy who scouts a lot. Like, he grinds tape, he grinds film, and obviously at Baseball America, they do the same thing. So Dax Kilby being ranked #3 in this system, essentially looking at him as a top 100 caliber prospect, that is really encouraging, because I think that we're only going to see that helium carry even more into the 2026 season. When you look at some of the other guys on this list who are ranked really highly or really favorably, Ben Hess, #5, that's where he's debuting, and you look at the guys he's around, ahead of Spencer Jones, right behind Carlos LaGrange. He's a guy who I'm really excited about his ranking. Dylan Lewis breaking inside the top 10, ranked at #8 for the Yankee organization. You could argue should have been higher than Bryce Cunningham. You could argue should have been higher than Spencer Jones. You could argue that's how good of a year he had. And, kind of staying on theme with the guys who rose in this list, you've got some serious risers on this side. The guys who are arrows up, Dylan Lewis, the highlighted guy here. And we're going to talk about Dylan Lewis real quick because he had a phenomenal 2025 season. Dylan Lewis this year, I mean, what else is there to say? He hit 22 home runs. He stole 26 bases in 122 games. He put up a 121 weighted runs created plus, meaning he was 21% better than the league average hitter. If you look at his power production in terms of just raw exit velocities, he hit the crap out of the baseball. Dylan Lewis has registered batted balls north of 113 miles per hour in its exit velocity. And the big thing for me is when you look at the single A and the high A numbers. In single A in 46 games, 9.2% walk rate, 28.2% strikeout rate. Then you look at high A, he takes the jump up to high A, 10.8% walk rate, 20.8% strikeout rate. The swinging strike rate comes down from 13.9% to 11.9% after the jump. So the swinging strike rate, the strikeout rate, the contact rates, the walk rates, they all improved as he moved up the level. There was a decrease in swing percentage, and for those who are not aware, when you swing less, typically in the minor leagues, you're able to make more contact because you're being more selective with what you're swinging at. He's still swinging around 45% of the time in high A. I don't think this is a hitter who is unsustainably passive and is improving his contact rate off of something that's a little bit kind of like, I guess the way to put it is gimmicky. There are things that work at the minor league level that don't work at the major league level. There are plenty of examples of that across minor league baseball. We always can see guys perform well in the minor leagues and then not do so well in the big leagues, and then some guys who don't perform as well as some of the other top guys perform pretty well in the big leagues because there are just certain skills that translate better into Major League Baseball. I think a really good example is like Nolan McLean. He had like a 16% strikeout to walk rate. Then he comes up to the big leagues and has like a 20% strikeout to walk rate, and he's better in the big leagues than he was in Double-A or in Triple-A. And I think that's because of how well the stuff translated and how dominant his pitch mix is. Obviously, we'll have to see him redo all that again in 2026 to comfortably say that he's overperforming his minor league strikeout rate. But that's an example of a pitcher who he just has skills that work in the big leagues. And for Dylan Lewis, power, contact, those are going to be two skills that you need to, you always, if you have both, you're probably going to hit in the big leagues. Now, Lewis's contact rates are still not elite. Like, this is still a guy who's got to improve that, but the raw power is excellent. The ability to just crush the baseball on contact consistently. When I got to see him hit in Hudson Valley, he just really impressed me. So very excited about Dylan Lewis. Another guy I want to highlight here, Mac Hewer, someone who, again, 8th round pick, has yet to make his debut, climbs all the way up to the number 12 spot on the Yankees Baseball America debut in the top 30. And what I think they're looking at is what the type of pitcher he is, the type of stuff he brings to the table as a tall right-handed pitcher. He's listed at 6'5", 265 on Fangraphs. This is a big dude. This is a hefty guy. And you'll see him throwing here on screen. And, I mean, this is a big guy. Like, there's a ton of power in those mechanics. There's some stuff I'm sure the Yankees can clean up. But he tops that at 98 miles per hour. He's got a nice slider, got a cutter, got a curveball. I think and a changeup I think he throws as well. There's some projectability here because when you look at how he throws his fastball, there's a ton of spin. I think it's like 2,500 RPMs of spin, but sometimes he tends to cut the ball. So we're using this little baseball as an example. He'll, instead of just right behind it, like just get that backspin and go. Sometimes it's, we're getting around it, so we're cutting it a little bit. And when we cut it a little bit, we kill some of the ride on that pitch, and we also kill some of the power on that pitch. Think of how force works and throwing a baseball. You want force through the ball, not around the ball when you're throwing a fastball. Now, when you're throwing a breaking ball, it's different. That's why breaking balls are slower. That's why cutters are slower than your primary fastball. You want your fastball to essentially be a pitch that you're getting all the way behind if you're someone like Hewer who throws a four-seam fastball. He's got the ability to get it up to like 21 inches of induced vertical break. I was able to find a game that he pitched at a big league field this past year. I think it was the Big 12 championship against Cincinnati. And he didn't pitch particularly great, but you got his pitch shapes on there, sitting 94, 2,500 RPMs. I think he was about 17 inches of ride on the four-seamer. That's going to contract with the big league ball. The college ball is easier to get backspin on than the big league ball, so the Yankees are going to have to help Hewer counteract that. It's a weird release point. He's got like a little bit of the arm action's a little bit weird in a good way. So again, Mac Hewer, big riser on this list, someone who went from unranked when he was drafted to number 12. Like, there's a lot of helium there with what scouts and what analysts believe Matt Keuer could be in 2026. And overall, again, just a lot of positives in terms of arrows up, especially near the top of that farm system. We'll see how they can kind of get that to be even better, because it's more of a middling farm right now than it is like a top of the league or top of the industry farm system. Now, some of the guys who are trending downward on this list, Roderick Arias falls off completely. He's no longer on the top 30 on Baseball America. He debuted last year, I think, at number 3 or number 2. So that is a stunning fall. Manny Cedeno was their top IFA signee from 2024, I believe. He falls off the list. Eric Raiselman was their top-ranked reliever prospect. He falls off the list as well. He had some arm issues and arm troubles. Xavier Marte, he falls off the list. Arm troubles as well. I don't think we've seen the end of Marte being on top 30s, but definitely an arrow down year for him. You go from having helium, the expectation to go pitch stateside, and then you tear your UCL and you miss the whole year. That's beyond disappointing. Henry Lelaine, I mean, it's a shame. The guy was a top 100 caliber prospect at one point. Now, doesn't throw nearly hard enough for that consideration. Sits around 90, 91. Secondaries aren't elite enough to make up for it, and he keeps getting hurt. So the guy I want to highlight here in this conversation is Roderick Arias, because, I mean, look, when we think about Roderick Arias, and this is going to bleed into the topic we're talking about a little bit later in this video, but you expected more. You just did. You expected more. This past year, he put up an 88 WRC plus, which means he was 12% worse than the league average hitter. Mind you, this is while repeating single A. He hit 7 home runs in 103 games. He struck out 28.8% of the time. While he had a 14% walk rate, and that's great, the game power is evaporated, and the zone contact rates are still not good. This is someone who is just not a prospect worth talking about at the level he was before. This is not somebody who warrants the level of conversation that he once came with. And it is such a shame to see somebody who was another top 100 caliber prospect be reduced to a non-factor inside the organization. Now, he is 20. You hope maybe that his age 21 season, something clicks, he breaks out, he explodes onto the scene, and he's back on these top 30s, but that's very hard to do. Once scouts kind of lose it with you, usually they're not wrong. More times than not, they're right. Arias, you're hoping is an exception, and you're hoping is an insane outlier, and that is when you're starting to hope for insane outlier outcomes, that's probably time to let go as a prospect in terms of any stock you held in the player. But it's a shame because, again, a very talented player. And, this will bleed into our conversation now about international free agency, because the New York Yankees are mired in a lot of drama on that side. And I think it's really, Yankees are in an interesting spot, man. They're in an interesting spot with that stuff. Wilbur Sanchez at Wilbur Data reported that Brian Cashman ordered the cancellation of all of their international pre-agreements, citing that the Bronx Bombers have begun a restructuring process in which the new international director will be primarily responsible for implementing a revamped international signing system aimed at restoring legitimacy and transparency in the process. So I find this fascinating. I find this whole saga fascinating. I find the fact that they are, it seems like there's a deep-seated issue the Yankees had outside of just performance. There was, don't get me wrong, the performance issues were real. The performance issues were legit. They did not get enough out of their international signings. With that being said, this is a very dramatic change of pace. This is a very dramatic decision. And I will also say this, it's a poorly timed one. They should have, if they wanted to get rid of Danny Rowland, they should have done it during the summer. If they wanted to get rid of him, they should have done it during the summer. And look, I get it. It's hard to do things during the regular season when you're trying to make trades, the draft. I get it. I get it. I really do. But you did cost yourself an entire international free agent class, and that's one of your forms of importing talent onto the farm. And even if these guys don't pan out, you've been able to trade international free agents. Give the Yankees credit. They've been able to trade these international free agents who have often not panned out and have been able to get nice returns. Ezekiel Duran has not been a great big leaguer, although he is a big leaguer. They were able to trade him for Joey Gallo, and Joey Gallo wasn't good for the Yankees, but the idea was that he was going to be good. So at least you're able to do things at the deadline because of things like that. More recent history, you get Jazz Chisholm on what I think was an exclusively IFA deal. Jared Serna, Augustin Ramirez, and I believe Abraham Ramirez was that deal. That's all international free agents. You look at the David Bednar deal, Edglin Perez, and another international free agent, I think, alongside Rafael Flores. So 2 out of 3 of the guys in that deal, IFAs. You look at the deal for Camilo Doval, 2 of the 3 guys, international free agents. So you look left and right, and a lot of these deals for the Yankees have been full of international free agents. So are they going to have the trade capital and the trade ammo that they would normally have without an IFA class this year, essentially? That is the issue they're going to have. And I think that is where my gripes are, which is the timing of it all, still not having a director, and going into this window without pulling down talent, and essentially leaving the prospect pool a little more barren than normal. And that's while having to rely on your prospect pool to hopefully land you a starting pitcher and a reliever. They have overspent on the prospect side. They need to work on building a pipeline from the minors to the majors, guys who stay inside the organization. That pipeline's a little bit broken. It's broken in the sense that they don't invest enough financially on other areas of their roster and kind of put a lot of pressure on the prospect side of things. So again, I'm not sitting here and telling you that firing Danny Rowland was bad. It was good. I think that part of the organization was bad. And I know people could say it's development or scouting. We'll get into that a little bit later. But my long-winded, my TLDR on that is, don't think it's a development issue, because that's not an issue at the draft. It's not an issue with undrafted free agents. It's not an issue with guys you trade for. It's an issue with guys you specifically get in the international free agent pool. That does raise a little bit of my suspicions. So those are my thoughts on that. Again, it's nuanced. I think it's good that they fired and got some, are going to clean up that structure and clean house there. They've had a lot of busts. They've had a lot of fails. If you look at a lot of the arrow downs, it's international free agents. Their international free agents don't pan out. That's what it is right now. But we'll move on to the questions that you guys provided, and I really appreciate you guys submitting questions under the tweet that I sent out on our Twitter account. I've got my reading glasses. Let's start reading questions. First one will go in the order that they pop up for me. From Kevin from Juan Calito. Oh, my boy, at KC_Keys. Why do you want to trade Dylan Lewis? That's a great question, Kevin. I don't think I want to trade Dylan Lewis. And there's another question regarding like tiers, and I'll get to go in depth with all the prospects, but the TLDR for me here is that the Yankees, if they bring back Cody Bellinger, will have Bellinger, Dominguez, Grisham, and Judge as all outfield options, Jones as well if he's not traded. There is not a lot of wiggle room for Dylan Lewis to get to the big leagues in the next 2 years and have a starting spot. And for that, I just think, hey, why not? Like, I don't want them to trade him, but if they're going to make a trade for a starting pitcher, Dylan Lewis is fairly expendable, and he is one of the better prospects they can trade. So that is why I believe, or that is why I have him in so many mock trades. It's not because I want him traded. It is because he's good. You've got to give to get. I always believe you got to give to get. I'm never going to try and put together packages where I think I'm sending out not great prospects. The reason he's in these mock trades is because I think he's good, and I think the Yankees could trade him and not be completely screwed in terms of their long-term roster planning. We got 2 questions from Ryan at RJNYY0. The first one is, what do you make of a guy like Richard Matzik? He was by far the best Yankee in the complex on the position player side in 25. Yeah, so I know he had really good power numbers, and the strikeout to walk rates were really good, but as somebody who isn't stateside, I can't really say anything other than he's interesting. I hope he has a big year this upcoming year. I can't say much more else, though, because he's not a stateside guy. Got to see more before I start believing, right? There's just so much development that still has to happen before I can form even a solid opinion on the player. And your other question, how big of an offensive leap are you expecting from Lombard this year? That's a great question. George Lombard Jr. did not have a great offensive season in Double-A, but he still finished with an 11% better than league average offensive profile. That's according to Weighted Runs Created Plus. He's very passive in zone. I think the Yankees need to work on him being passive in zone and try and get him to be less passive in zone. They need to get him to be a little more aggressive, but let's look at what he did from 2024 to last year. He saw a 40-point improvement in his isolated power, about a 45-point improvement in slugging percentage. If he can make those gains again this upcoming year, he's going to be a 180 isolated power, 420 slugging percentage guy. That's pretty impressive. That's going to get me to a point where I'm starting to talk about this guy like a guy who could be an above average big league hitter. I want to make sure we kind of understand the player that George Lombard Jr. profiles as. He is a plus defensive shortstop, a high probability shortstop who is 20 years old, and that is a big draw here. He's a shortstop, and he's a good shortstop defensively. I would put him in the bucket of a Dansby Swanson type, not in the bucket of a Corey Seager or a Bo Bichette type, where those guys are outlier offensive players who kind of lack the goods defensively. Bichette more than Seager, but most of their profile is drawn out by offense. Seager is one of the greatest hitting shortstops of all time, and Bichette is a very good hitting shortstop who doesn't bring a lot of defensive value. Defense tends to be an invisible skill for a lot of fans. You don't really see defense the way that you see offense, or statistics are more readily available for offense. When you see a score bug open up on a player when they're at the plate, you don't see the defensive run saved. You don't see the outs above average. You see batting average, home runs, RBIs, OPS. So it's an invisible skill usually. We don't really highlight defense as much as offense. And I say Dansby Swanson, and some people might go, oh my God, really? We got to trade this guy then. Dansby Swanson has been the 8th best shortstop in baseball since signing with the Cubs, according to wins above replacement. He is an elite defensive player. If you look at since 2022, among big leaguers, Dansby Swanson is one of the better big leaguers in the game. He's 13th in wins above replacement with a 105 WRC+. He is by far the best defensive shortstop in baseball based on both volume and on a per rate basis. He's been awesome. If the Yankees get Dansby Swanson, or at least a version we've seen of Dansby Swanson with the Cubs, out of George Lombard Jr., they will have a very good shortstop position. They will win a lot of games because of it, because defense does matter. Next question from Anashi, and it's at Anashi_Maps24, another good friend of mine. Who's one breakout pick you have from a position player and pitcher, as well as one recent draftee and a DSL guy we can see stateside? So I'm going to cheat a little bit for my DSL guy. I think it's Richard Matzik. That is who I'd pick. I'm cheating a little bit, but that's my pick. I'm not very good at predicting these DSL guys because they're difficult, man. It's hard to get film in the first place. So shout out Yankees Farm. They've always got film. Shout out them. You guys should check them out. They're sick. But it's hard to get film. It's hard to see anything more than like his Fangraph stats. And I don't evaluate prospects that way. I think that's a very surface level way to do it. So that's my cheat pick. Recent draftee. Let's go with Big Mac Hewer. I think he's gonna have a big year this year. Again, I like the helium we're seeing on Baseball America, and as we detailed earlier, gets behind the fastball more. We're gonna see that baby just pop in terms of ride and velo. Another kind of trendy pick I have here. I really like Rory Fox. I really like his profile. I think the Yankees can get a lot of good out of Rory Fox. So those are my two picks there. A pitcher. Now, I'm not going to go with draftees for the position players or the pitchers. For a pitcher, I think a really good pick here for me would be, I believe we're going to see a big year out of Andrew Landry. His stuff is really good. I'm surprised he wasn't on this top 30. His stuff plus numbers are ridiculous. I think he's going to have a big year this year. A lot of strikeouts, cut down the walks, and make himself a name in this system. And then on the position player side, I'm going to go with Juan Matthews. I think that's how you pronounce it. Really good defensive player. I know he doesn't have the power that other guys have, but if you're going to be a high on base, high average, play good defense in the dirt, shortstop, third, second, that's what I'm referring to, you're a useful baseball player. So I think those are my picks there for breakouts. So thank you for the question, man. Really appreciate it. I got an anonymous question. How are you feeling about Henry Lane? I don't feel great. The velo's dipped. The arm troubles continue to persist. I believe this is a player who we're looking at as a guy whose career was derailed by injury. Like, we're going to sit back and go, damn. Or at least prospect heads, not like the casual fan, but prospect heads are going to sit back and go, damn, this guy's supposed to be great. This guy's supposed to be special. And he didn't end up even reaching the big leagues. I think that's where we're trending with Lane. It's scary. I hope that's not the case. I hope he has a big rebound year, but getting less and less likely that he finds his 2023 form again. I think the velo especially is gone. The next question I want to highlight is from Zachary Goldstein. Is there a lack of depth in the farm system? If there is, could that change anytime soon? So if you followed me on Twitter, you have seen me go, hey, the Yankees better be careful about relying on a trade for a pitcher because there is not a lot to suggest that they have enough depth to beat out other suitors. And I stand by that. I think the Yankees are going to have to hope and pray that a team really likes one of their prospects, or they like one of their major league guys, like a Dominguez or a Warren, in order to get a big deal done and not kill the farm entirely. But I do think there's cavalry on the way. Now, the lack of international free agent signings stings. If you could insert Wandy Oxygen into this top 10, you'd feel really good. You can't. That sucks. You're not going to be able to kind of just write in and pencil in all the other commitments you had from the upcoming years, so that's scary. But I do think the draft capital, this past year's draft looks really like solid and promising. A lot of the guys who they picked up, a lot of positives inside the industry. It looks like a lot of these guys are going to have like solid years in 26. They had a lot of their draft picks do pretty well last year. Ben Hess was awesome, right? He was great. You had a really good year from Dylan Lewis. Brendan Jones continued to flourish. So there's some fun there. Dax Kilby's been awesome. We've already seen Dax Kilby rise up to the number 3 prospect on Baseball America, number 1 on Prospectus. Probably going to end up being number 1 or number 2 on my list. Again, it's one of those things where the Yankees have a good draft again, and I don't think they're going to sign a guy with a qualifying offer, so they're going to have all their draft picks. If this draft plays out the way it's looking like it's going to play out, we could see that change. And if they use their upcoming draft picks in the 26th draft well, then yes, by the end of 2026, this could be a top 10 farm system in baseball. But that is going to require a lot of ifs, ands, and hits, which a lot of organizations are hoping for. A question from Bossy at @RealBossy_. Are there any bats not named Spencer Jones that could realistically have an impact on the Yankees this season? My answer to that would be Brendan Jones. Brendan Jones is a really fun prospect because he's this scrappy player, pulls a lot of his fly balls to right field as a left-handed hitter, doesn't hit a lot of ground balls, a lot of line drives, a lot of fly balls, a lot of pop-ups. You got to work on that. Contact rates are pretty good. Really patient at the plate, but not overly patient like with Lombard where it's hurting his ability to hit. Base running's great. He stole 50 bases this year. Defensively, I think there are improvements he can make. Like, I think he could be a much better defensive player in center field. I think there are improvements he can make there, but look at him more as a corner outfielder. Brendan Jones is my pick for a guy who could have an impact on this roster outside of Spencer Jones on the position player side in 2026. From @BernieW51, that display name is legendary. Burn, baby, burn. Can you put these guys into tiers for like the caliber player you trade for? Example, Lombard for Skubal or Ryan type. So let's use. I'm gonna use the Baseball America top 30 as my barometer here to kind of slice and dice, and I'll put it back up on the screen so you guys can see it. George Lombard Jr., Elmer Rodriguez, and Dax Kilby. I would consider Dax Kilby more untouchable than Elmer. I would personally have Kilby ahead of Elmer on this list. Lombard is untouchable in the sense that I wouldn't trade him for like a Renzel and like Freddie Peralta, but I would trade him for Skubal, obviously. I would trade him not for Joe Ryan. I would trade Elmer for Joe Ryan. So I guess George and Dax are the most untouchable. Elmer is only in a controllable number 2, number 1 starter pitcher deal, not for a situation where they're not getting a pitcher of significant quality back. LaGrange is in a similar bucket, but a little bit more open to trading him for a Renzel. Hess, same thing, more open to trading him than LaGrange. So I'm going to just dice it up into tiers. The top 3, I'd avoid trading them if I could, but if I have to, I have to. Depends on the player. LaGrange would hesitate, but he's probably the best prospect who I'm a little more open about trading. On the side of like Ben Hess and Dylan Lewis, I think those guys are your best trade chips because I think they're good, and I think you can trade them and you can get value back, and you don't have to worry about what they would have meant for your major league roster. Spencer Jones, I think, is a cash in. You got to try and cash in when you can, and I think now's the window to cash in. Bryce Cunningham is also kind of like he's below Jones to me. He's below Hess and Lewis to me, but I wouldn't just willy-nilly trade him. Same thing with Hurd, same thing with Hampton. And then outside of that, like everyone else is kind of up for grabs. I will say I do really want to hold on to Pico Cone selfishly because I think he's going to have a really good year, but that's neither here nor there. So, yeah, that's, I guess, answering the question. I hope that visual helped as well. Thank you for the question, too. The next question from Luis Angel, he asks, Elmer Rodriguez demonstrated progress in the minors in 2025, posting a 2.58 ERA and leading all minor league pitchers in strikeouts. A strong showing in 2026 spring training. Could it secure his spot on the opening day roster? Answer is yes. Yes, it could, because as things stand right now, he's their number 6 starter. And I've said this a million times on the major league side. If you have a number 6 starter, expect your number 6 starter to open the season with you, because you are going to have injuries. So I think Elmer could show up to camp and he could dominate, man. This guy was awesome last year. I considered him for the number 1 prospect in the system. That's how good he was this year. I really like Elmer. Deep mix, good velo, good movement. I'd prefer the Yankees to have him in a situation where if they open camp, he's like their number 7 starter or their number 8 starter, and he gets to compete with the number 7, number 6 starters for that job, rather than go into camp, try and go into camp and be the number 6 starter and have to essentially be ready to go regardless of how he performs. So I'd prefer him coming to camp and steal that job from somebody than come into camp and essentially be ready to take somebody's job, because injuries will all but certainly open that up. So kind of like how Luis Gil made the team, where he wasn't the number 6 starter. Warren was ahead of him on that depth chart. Weaver was ahead of him on that depth chart. He went out there and he beat everybody in competition. That's why he won it in 24. I want Rodriguez to be in that spot, not in the spot where he is the first man up. So, yeah, really excited about what Elmer can do in 2026. He's definitely their most major league ready guy in the top 10. Drew at Drew Clugs goes, what does it say about Dylan Lewis and Ben Hess that they were the names asked for in the Cabrera trade talks? Bendix knows his stuff, so highlighting 2 of the most underrated prospects in the Yankee system here. Yeah, I fully agree. I think that, and I already talked about Dylan Lewis, so this is going to be more Ben Hess oriented. Dylan Lewis is awesome. Ben Hess was one of the best minor league pitchers in baseball last year. Among guys who threw at least 100 innings, of which there were 288 of them. If you look at his fielding independent pitching, he was 4th at 2.50. If you look at his expected FIP, he was 10th at 2.94. If you look at his strikeout rate, he was 6th at 33%. You look at his batting average against, 175, 7th. Strikeout to walk rate, 11th, 22.1%. I mean, this guy was awesome this year. Ben Hess was incredible. He had an awesome year. He was really freaking good. And I think a lot of people just kind of ignored that the Yankees' first-round pick was objectively incredible this past year. And he was better at Double-A than he was at High A. His FIP dropped from 2.58 to 2.34. The xFIP was 2.92 to 2.97, so remained pretty stagnant. The ERA, 3.51 to 2.70. The walk rate, 11.9% to 9%. Strikeout rate did go down, but the overall strikeout to walk rate improved by 0.2%. So, again, this was a guy who was just awesome last year. Tons of swing and miss. Tons of called strikes because of the weird release. He's got a low release point, and, you know, it's a really weird, funky, like, low release, tons of ride. Good curveball, changeup as well. This guy rocks. Ben Hess, really awesome prospect. Very excited about what he'll become in 2026. And the final question from Owen at D May to Boston. That boy Drake May, dude. Drake May is the MVP in my opinion. Are the Yankees IFA problems not identifying the right talent, or is there development issues once they reach the organization? I think the issue is scouting and identifying talent, and the reason I say that is because let's analyze the other pockets of importing talent. Trading for major leaguers, signing undrafted free agents, drafting guys, and then international free agency. They have done well in 4 of these 5 realms. They've drafted pretty well in the last few years relative to their draft slot. They've signed pretty good free agents. They've traded for pretty good players. And they've gotten some pretty good undrafted free agents. Rafael Flores was an undrafted free agent. They have, and Ben Shields as well as an undrafted free agent. They traded him for Bird. So, yeah. They have not done well on the IFA side. If you're good at developing everywhere but your international free agents, I don't think it's a development issue. I think it's a scouting issue. Now, that is the primary cause. I do believe there's got to be some semblance of a developmental issue if you can't even take, like, Roderick Arias and make him great or make him a better prospect than he was. They're getting good value signings out of, like, their lower-level guys. Augustin Ramirez was not a big name when he signed. They're just not hitting on the top guys. So, yeah, I think it's a development thing. But thank you for supporting us. Really appreciate it, guys. This is going to be coming out every single Friday. We're going to open up the Q&As to the YouTube. I did not anticipate to get this many questions, but I'm excited. This is great. I'm really happy about it. You guys have been great. You're awesome. I love you guys so much. Like, subscribe. Please subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please, please, please. We want to hit 30,000 subs. I'm competitive. I want to get there, and I need you guys to get me there. So I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Let's go Yanks, baby. Peace out.